Welcome to our first broadcast from La Mata in Spain. I'm Matt. I'm an expat that basically lives in La Mata. I've been here for nearly too long now. I've been here about 2 years, going into our third year. Live chat is something you can actually jump in on and basically ask questions about life in Spain. We will answer from our perspective, but also we want to take notes from what people want to know, because we do have Andres, who's a lawyer who can be quite a useful resource for some people. But also there's things like finding property, the relocation stuff, the normal day-to-day stuff that everybody has to deal with when looking at becoming a person in a new country. And that's basically what this is. We're going to discuss that and go over the different things. I mean, one of the first things that people seem to struggle with is actually finding work here. That sort of takes precedence over everything else, because process for your residency, for example, if you don't have regular income, if you've got a pension, it's a case of you don't need the work. But let's just take it from the people that need to find work in Spain. First thing is, there's a lot of people that do not get their paperwork processed properly by employers. The reason being is they're not, it's not an issue with you. What it is they're trying to avoid paying the excess social security and stuff. That's why a lot of people are autonomo. Autonomo is basically self-employed, because that exists so that people can then turn around and provide their own social security payments. But in all honesty, it can be quite expensive if you're only working in a what do you call it? Say a restaurant or something. It's sometimes just not viable. But this is why you'll find some people even get double paid, because they'll get 700 euros, say, on their pay slip, and then they'll get some more money in cash, or because they're trying to keep a lot of the stuff off the books. Not something we can deal with. In the UK, they've sort of wiped a lot of that out these days. But it exists still in Spain. But it makes it a bit of a pain when you're trying to get your paperwork processed. When you're actually, one of the things I want to say, if you look down the right-hand side of the YouTube live chat, you can actually ask questions as well. I can actually see them. I've just put that up on here, because now the Google Hangouts is up and running. I'll put my YouTube channel back on so I can see what you're typing. One of the things I want to say is, somebody's going to say, why don't you do video? Well, we just done another test on the video about 2 minutes ago, and it still sounds like a fish tank. The video is distorted, and then it distorts the audio, so that's why we ditched it. At least this way you can actually hear me, which is the important bit. Hi, Jamie Fernandez. Yeah, you just definitely shouldn't be self-employed if you're a waiter or working in a restaurant or kitchen or whatever. I agree totally. But the problem with a lot of people wanting residency, they've got to have some paperwork and of income, and a lot of it is, cash in hand, or don't really give you the right information. Yeah, exactly. If you're a restaurant, you've got to do it, because they know you own it. They know you should be paying tax somewhere. JP in Fuerteventura, just to let you know I can hear you. Thanks for that, because obviously I can't hear myself this end. Yeah, the self-employment, I find, it's expensive, because there's a lot of people that overcharge on it. I admit I got ripped off on it. I was paying nearly 70 euros a month just for the accountant, and I found later I could get the same work done for about 25. My accounts were a bit bizarre in the sense that the accountancy was set up wrong in the first place. So for me, I want to be self-employed, but processing here, not here. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the JP just said here in the sense of hearing with your ear, and not here as in location. Yeah, the problem with my autonomo is the UK companies don't recognise it, because most of my work is online or physically dropping in on the UK. But the problem is they set up the autonomo wrong. They did the same to a friend of mine, Gordon. He had exactly the same issue. They set the paperwork up wrong, which for €70 a month, managing the basics would be a start. So at the moment, I'm tempted to go limited company because I have a lot of expenses I can run through mine, because if I'm hopping into London, I can book all my flights and stuff, where I'm not sure how that looks on a autonomo in Spain, you know, on the basic paperwork. So I need to get a sit down with Andreas and the people in the accountancy to sit and see what expenses I can claim for, because at the end of the day, if I'm giving them tax and social security, I want some of it back. That's the whole point for me. I mean, that's the whole VAT man thing. It's a cat and mouse game of trying to recover the money they're taking from you. But yeah, I do find that that's one of the biggest problems people face here, is finding work where they can actually legally pay everything, but also finding companies that are willing to pay it, because even I've seen teachers not getting the right paperwork in private schools, because they're paying some on the pay slip and the other in cash, so that they don't actually have to pay on the taxes, you know, because there's this 20% tax that people are paying. But I thought that teaching was one of the ones exempt because of education. Whatever it is, they certainly don't seem keen on it. Jamie Fernandez, well, if you're going to start your own company, as far as I know, you should still be autonomo. Yeah, I'm thinking of the old .sl. But the thing is, you can be autonomo, but in a sense covers you. You can't employ other people. But as a SL, you know, as a limited company, I can have other people contract to me. I do some surveying work where I could actually sit on my backside in Spain and actually get other people doing the work in the UK, then run it through my accounts. That's why I would probably have to go limited company, because I have other employees. I don't think you can do that in autonomo. I think autonomo is the same as being a sole trader in the UK, where it's only you. You don't have other employees. But also, it seems they set the autonomo up based on what you do. As well, in some way. I'm not 100% sure why. I need to spend a bit more time with the insurance people, not the insurance people, the tax people, because I seem to find that a lot of people drink coffee when you're trying to contact them. Like my accountant I got rid of in November, it normally took 3 days to 4 days to get any response. Absolutely abysmal. I was paying €70 a month. JP Infinite. Sole traders can employ people in the UK. They may be able to. I'm just saying, I don't think you can with autonomo, but I think as a sole trader before, I'm not 100. You know, like I said, I would need to speak to people, but I do know that autonomo seems to be singular. But this is another thing I find in Spain. You get contradicting information a lot of the time, and this is the sort of stuff that needs sort of clarifying, because it's expensive when it's wrong. Because you can set up like as an autonomo and then find you need to be something else, and then you've got the rigmarole of wrapping up that autonomo to open the other bit. It's just a headache. It really is. I mean, the good thing about the autonomo is the cost of the social security payments are fairly low. I think it starts at 60 euros a month and works its way up to about 230 euros a month. Yeah, Jamie Fernandez, I'm not really sure. I haven't done it myself, but if you have a small company with you and 1 or 2 people, it may be best if you're all autonomos and work for the company. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It gets confusing. Yeah, as JP says, you can ask 5 officials and get 5 responses. That's exactly the problem. And I think this is why I'm going to be trying to do more with this channel, trying to clarify some of this stuff. Because although where we are, we're sort of under Torrevieja and the little rules around here, somebody up in Benidorm that's got completely different setups, because we've been dealing with these residency issues in different areas and finding things can be completely different. I mean, Torrevieja, it took me over a year to process. And the joke being, I sacked the guy that's supposed to be doing it for me, and I got it through in less than 2 months doing it myself. But up in Benidorm, some people have walked in and had stuff processed straight away when they shouldn't have had them processed. It seems a bit hit and miss. There's too much free reign put on it, interpretation of locals, which makes it very hard to standardize. But at least if we can turn around and say, well, you know what, if you're in Torrevieja, be aware of this. If you're in Benidorm, be aware of this. If you're in Murcia, so that everybody can go, okay, somebody's had these issues. Who knows if that guy ever did anything that you hired? Yeah, he took a fair bit of money. That's about it. Beyond that, no. To the apartment we rented, because he was dealing with that. That's how we initially made contact with him. The neighbor upstairs had their pipes bursting, and all the water was coming through our electrics and everything else. We contacted him, being the agent of the landlord, and it was only, I think, November this year, which is a year after the flooding had happened, that I found out the landlord was completely unaware of it. Because we dealt with it ourselves. We had a neighbor come in. I was in the UK working at the time. A neighbor come in, disconnected the electrics, and we dried the house out, etc. But the guy didn't even pass on the basic information that the place was flooded, because the repairs are not our problem. It was, I mean, obviously it's a problem from upstairs, but a bit of basic etiquette and consideration would be to let the landlord know that this had happened on the property. But he didn't even bother with that. Yeah, Jamie Fernandez. And in Spain, most laws are made, so there is always some person that has to decide. Yeah, that's the point. They decide. In the UK, we normally find law is law. So if it's written down as a specific, you can't really deviate on it. They don't really let you have that. They just go, well, it's the law, put up with it. They don't go, well, it depends if the guide processing's had a bad day or not. It's terrible because it makes it easier for corruption, 100%. I was out in the Philippines before Spain, and corruption is now being starting to be hit there quite hard with the new president there. But it was rampant there. You know, there's people going in, and you could buy your residencies and stuff. There was all sorts of stuff going on. But also, even having a business, you were getting hassle off the customs officials, and everybody was trying to make money off everybody in some form. It's difficult, but even down to fire extinguishers. This is the bizarre one. I think where is it? It's a specific place within Luzon. You have to change your fire extinguishers every year, which is not a legal requirement. But if you don't, then you won't get your fire permits. That's because they're making money off you changing all the. So yeah, the corruption can be quite bad, but I haven't seen it that bad in Spain yet. Well, I say that. Has anybody seen the movie The Man with 1,000 Faces? That's an interesting movie to watch, because it's got some specifics in there which people may find a bit bizarre, but it's a very good movie. I'm not going to ruin it by discussing what it's about. And for those that don't speak Spanish, you need to watch it with subtitles. But it's a very, very good movie. I enjoyed watching that. Yeah, Jamie Fernandez, I haven't watched it. Yeah, I recommend watching it, because it's bizarre, the stuff that happened in there. And I assume it's pretty close to the truth as well, which is normally what's it? Truth is better than fiction. I think in this case it really is. So yeah, finding your first job in Spain would be probably the hardest thing to do. Because most places you need to be multilingual. They're going to, if you can speak Spanish and English, it's far, far easier. Which is why a lot of people fail in the first transition period, because they think, I know myself, I was busy anyway, but when I arrived, I was hoping to be more fluent in Spanish within the first year, but life gets in the way. So my Spanish is not fantastic, and it's holding me back, to be honest. If I'd spent another year or so before I got here, I'd have been off the blocks, because the work I do is predominantly in asset surveying, facility management, etc. And there's plenty of work all over Europe for me, one language. Yeah, JP says there's plenty of corruption here in Fuerteventura, laws that only apply to expats, etc., not locals. Yeah, I haven't really experienced that where we are, but then again, I think the population is nearly 60% foreigner, so I'm not sure if it goes on or not. I have seen a friend of mine got stopped with a false fine with the police, because when he took the ticket down to the police station after paying it, they said it wasn't one of theirs, yet it was a police car that stopped them. So Jamie Fernandez, doesn't it help you that your wife and kids speak Spanish? Try to get them to talk to me in Spanish as much as possible. It does, but our house is multilingual in the sense that we have 3 languages getting spoken in the house. Sorry, 4, because in the Philippines we speak Visayan, but one of April's friends is from Luzon, which is the Northern Islands, so she speaks Tagalog, which is what's known as Filipino. Then the kids speak English and Spanish. So yeah, it's very multilingual in our house. But the problem I have is conversational. I know so many words in Spanish, but they're not connecting. You know, when you try to talk and it's just nothing comes out. I'm at that stage. I need to find some retired guy here just to buy him coffee every day and just sit and annoy him and get him to beat Spanish into me, going, no, that's not how you say it, until I get grips with it. But it's what's holding me back in Spain, and honestly, if I can get my Spanish sorted, life will be much, much easier for me. And also, Andreas is on about doing a Spanish school on Saturdays, so I might be going over there, because Andreas, although he's originally from Italy, his wife's from Colombia, and he spent some time in Colombia. He's fluent in, obviously, Italian, Spanish, and English. So he's interested in doing some lessons there. So maybe I'll go over to Andreas once he gets. Big problem with Andreas, he's always so busy. You know, the last interview we did, we lost the last part of the video. I don't know why. This is the bizarre thing, because the video's there, it's recorded it, but it's just completely black. There's no sound, there's nothing. It's just a black screen. But the bizarre thing, at the same time that was going on, father-in-law had a stroke in the Philippines. So it was as if, bizarre thing, strange thing, but it just vanished. That's why there's no part 4, because it just stopped in the middle of there. JP says, a friend of ours was being fined by a police officer, local police, I awarded him with a gun, for having her dogs off the lead on Campo while locals were there with theirs off the lead. Yeah, I find the dog stuff a bit weird, because there are so many dogs in this area. It seems that, I mean, where we are in Lamata, there's a ridiculous amount of dogs, because it seems that a lot of retired people here have these small dogs, and they're just like everywhere. It must be at least a third of the population. JP says, when she said, what about them? He laughed and said, that's the price you pay for living in paradise. I don't think that this is where YouTube comes in these days. That's why the Philippines is getting caught out a lot. A lot of the corruption's just getting fed straight onto the YouTube and going viral. It just stops all that crap. Because though you may pay the fine, because obviously you don't need to turn around and say, I'm complaining about this, because if you've been stuck with a fine or whatever, fine. but stick it on YouTube. You know, at the end of the day, they'll have to come and find you, and you just go, nothing to do with me. But you can work it onto YouTube, and the corruption becomes very obvious. And had it in Mexico because he kept getting stopped by police for money en route because they had one of these Winnebago type things, big what do you call it? The big camper van type thing. And what he realized is if he got out the cab and started shouting and holding the money up, it's like, oh, you want money? You want money? I'll give you more money. The police just walked away. They didn't. They left him alone after a while because he was getting stopped like four times a day. But as soon as he started making it very public, they backed off. But it's a pity that they think that that's okay to say that sort of thing. That it's the price you pay for living in paradise. I don't understand their logic. See, the thing is, if we took that logic in the UK, there's a lot of people in the UK that work there from Spain. And well, we should double tax you because you're from Spain because we provide work. It's like it's a very poor excuse. What they really mean is they're corrupt. That's it. They're thieves. And that's all that comes down to. It's making an excuse for the fact that they're just thieves. Nothing more, nothing less. It's a pity. It really is a pity because those things have a long-term effect in the sense that if that happens to somebody, they tell what, at least 20 people, and now it's on here, so there's 6 people watching, which is a big hi to everybody. But the whole point is then everybody is aware that there is corruption issues. So it becomes a bigger problem. It's no longer a paradise. It's something where you have to watch the local police if they're taking bribes or whatever in some form. It's a pity. I would have been thrown out for behaving like that. I agree. The thing in the UK, the due process of complaints is a lot more thorough. Where it seems here is not in the same state. I know I've seen it putting the police cars backly parked and stuff in Spain, and then putting on YouTube or something. They've been prosecuting people. I can't confirm that, but that's from what I've been seeing. It seems that that sort of stuff's going on. You know, where they're illegally parked, and then they stick it on YouTube, and then it's like, oh, look at this police car parked like this, and then they're getting prosecuted for doing it. Yeah, Emilia Sagado joined us. So, moving on from Autonomo, what sort of businesses are there for expats? I mean, the first one I would say is what skills that you can actually transfer from where you've come from. For example, air conditioning engineer. There's a lot of air conditioning here. It's everywhere. JP is off to his Spanish lessons. All right, catch you later. Take care. So teach your skills or use the skills you already have. One of the things about teaching skills is you've got more stuff online these days, in the sense that you haven't just got access to having to do it face-to-face. You've got things like Skype, you've got websites, blogs, and you can create training programs even where you can teach people about your specific trade or get them in one-to-one as well. There is a market for that sort of stuff. It's a growing market. This is why things like lynda.com exist, because there's a lot of people that have bite time availability where they may only have 2 or 3 days a week, sorry, 2 or 3 hours a week to learn something. But when you put courses now together in their own time, then you can do a bit of tutoring or whatever. So there's a market there. And one of the obvious ones with teaching people the other skills here in Spain is English. Spanish seems to have, Spain has some issues internally, I find, relating to trying to keep the local identity. I'm finding with the kids at school at the moment, it seems that Valencian is becoming more important than teaching the kids English. Now, my kids are fine because obviously they speak English anyway. But what I'm saying is when they push the Valencian over a language that is not regional but global, that sort of hinders development. If you wanted to go outside the country and you don't speak English, it can make life a little bit more difficult. Being fluent in Valencian will not help you when you're in Belgium, Germany, France, wherever you are in the world, because nobody speaks Valencian except for the people are from the region. And I do think there's a market for teaching English. One of the things that people keep pushing on that is that in Spain they want CELTA, CELTA as a qualification. Now you can get that, and I think they even do some of those courses online now. But I did the TESOL, TESOL course myself, and I found it a waste of time. I'll be honest with you. I wasted over £220 on this lesson, on this program. Yes, I got my certificate. Did it teach me much? No, not £220 worth. I could quite simply, I could have sit and done it at home with just buying a couple of books off Amazon and taught myself, because it didn't really teach me anything of value. But at the same time, I got my little TESOL certificate, so that's the plus. But I would also say, if you're teaching English, it's not always about going through a set process, because sometimes, I mean, I do teach students from Vietnam and Thailand and some other locations, but they often come to you and say, I want to do a presentation. Can you teach me how to do a presentation? Well, you're not going to learn how to teach somebody to do a presentation in a normal classroom environment, but also you need to try and get them to backtrack a little bit to make them understand that because you've learned something parrot fashion, as soon as it gets to the question and answer section, you can't understand what people are saying to you. So you've got to step back, get to the level of English you are at, and develop it from there. You know, we can get you through the presentation, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make your life easier. If you do a perfect presentation and people start assuming you speak English, you're going to hit a brick wall where you're standing there looking a bit foolish because you have no idea what anybody else is saying. So things like that, being a bit delicate with people who have a specific task given by a company, you need to say, right, we can do that, but I think we need to develop some of your language ability as well. So we need to understand where you're coming from, what level of English you have, what's your issues. Because it's a lot of the Thai students, I find it's not actually their vocabulary that's a problem, it's their speech. So things like that, where you're getting them to go over the problems within the transition of the language, you know, the sounds, because in Spain it's similar. There's certain sounds that are different for the words. So you have to focus on those sort of things. And that doesn't come from doing one of these TESOL courses, from the ones I've seen. This comes from actually experience. So the only thing I would say about teaching English is get yourself organized, get yourself structured, and also try to develop your own way of getting your own students, rather than using language schools or whatever, because a lot of the language schools, they're on a win-win situation, because they'll say charge 100 euros, say, for a short course, paid up front, and you have to carry out the hours, then put in your monthly invoicing to get that money back. First thing I will say, that if anybody that's worked in education, they will know there's about a 30% dropout. So that means instantly that the people that are doing all the advertising and stuff, they're getting that 30% for doing absolutely nothing. Where if your students was like doing, bought 10 lessons, had done 7, then says, well, I'm fine, I don't need any more. Those other 3 lessons, you still get paid for if you're the person they paid in the first place. So that's why English teaching is a very viable one. But also, you can't just use it in Spain. It's global. That's what I'm saying. I can teach Thai students, I can teach Vietnam students, I can teach Spanish students, but also you can move around with it. But one of the things that you will find that the Spanish schools want is the CELTA. In Asia, they just want a TESOL certificate, 90% of them, and you can do these courses really easily. Don't go for a long-winded one. It just ain't worth the money. I've also had a friend do the CELTA one in a class-based environment and blah, blah, blah in the UK. And he said the same. Even his course was a waste of time in that sense. It was expensive, but he didn't get a lot out of it. And you have to understand that English teaching, like anything, you may have a qualification in something. It doesn't make you a great teacher. Teaching comes from developing your experience and skills and making it interesting and encouraging the students. So those sort of things are important. Jamie Fernandez may want to try and get in touch with Spain Speaks. He's an Australian living in Madrid. Did you mention him the other day? Because I think somebody else mentioned him as well. So that's Spain Speaks. I'm going to put him on my notepad. Try and get hold of him. Yeah, because the thing is with the English language, there's always people wanting to do it. And one of the things that I've seen here locally is they'll book like a small office and have like 10 people in it one go. Or there's a woman here in La Mata that teaches Spanish. She's British, but she teaches people Spanish. And she'll teach 2 people for like €10 at a time. I think maximum 3 people. But the point being is there's different ways of doing it. And the thing is to make it comfortable for you, comfortable for your students, but it's certainly a viable business. It certainly is. You won't get rich off it unless you actually take it to selling to corporations and new factories where they need to get over the language barrier. But you're very likely to become sustainable quite quickly by going through the process of teaching English. I'm developing another YouTube channel just for the teachers teaching English as well, because I've got my friend Mark. Mark's actually living in one of my apartments in the Philippines. We've got a call center there that we're looking at turning into a language teaching unit. With Mark, Mark's been teaching English for over 2 years, and we've got Chris. Chris has been teaching English for 15 years. So there's a few of us that, myself, I'm new to teaching English, but I come from the technology side. So I'm the IT guy in the equation, should we say. Jamie Fernandez, there was a big case a few years ago of a chain of big English schools that took money from people and closed everywhere. Their offices, I think I've seen some of the offices shut down. The level of English people get, it's pretty bad. Yes, I would say, because the teachers with my daughter Zoe, they love interacting with my wife because my wife speaks them in Spanish and they respond in English and they improve each other's language. It's quite entertaining to watch because they're quite happy. You know, they appreciate the opportunity to speak English. My wife enhances her Spanish and they're quite amazed on how good my wife's Spanish is. The English language is even bad at university level. I can't comment on that, but like I said, I do think there's too much emphasis on local dialects. From my personal opinion, I think that English, Chinese, Mandarin or whatever, languages that can be used outside the country are important. I know Spanish is growing globally. I think it's the number 3 spot now on international languages. But at the same time, the person who understands the most languages in a meeting with people from all over the place is the one with an advantage over everybody because he can hear everything going on in the room. There's a little stuttering in the mic. Sometimes it's fine, most of the time, but sometimes we can't hear some words. This is the problem I've got with the internet in La Mata. It's not a great signal. It's still running on telephone cables, and they're not going to upgrade this anytime soon, I don't think. I'd have to move house, which is a real pain. I want to ask, maybe you know how truck drivers are doing in Spain. I know a few truck drivers actually, but they're not from the UK. They're Bulgaria. One of the guys is from Bulgaria, and I'm trying to think where the other two guys come from. But they're doing fine. They had a bit of a slow period with the snow because obviously there's been complaints in the UK about a lack of lettuce, as if there was some sort of hoarding going on in Spain. It was snowing. It was, but the thing is, they're back to normal. So yeah, they seem to do fine. I haven't met a miserable truck driver here. They're all upbeat. I think they like being home. They like coming back. But the guys I know, they deliver mainly food produce. So it's like broccoli and lettuce and stuff like that they take all over Europe. But yeah, they don't seem to be having any problems. Just going through my list, because I have a list of things I was going to talk about today. Yeah, mobile businesses. I think there's a market for mobile businesses in Spain as well. Mobile hairdressers, mobile mechanics, etc. Because I've been finding the cost of business units expensive. You know, for units where there's a lot of empty spaces, they seem to be charging a lot of rents in some of these locations. So that's why I was thinking, like, without having a van, being a mobile mechanic, mobile hairdresser, mobile aircon, whatever it is, I think that's the way to go. Thirsty, what about the salaries? I'll have to check on that because I don't actually know how much the truck drivers get paid, but it's probably relative to the local market, which will not be anywhere near what they'll be paid from the UK side. One of the key elements for me of living in Spain is that the cost of living here is relatively cheap. It costs us about €1,000 a month for where we live, for the four of us. That doesn't take into account my autonomo costs, because obviously I've shut my autonomo down there. But once I go limited or whatever, that will obviously increase, but obviously that becomes a business income. It's hard to tell. I'll ask the guys when I see them. Truck driving. I'm just going to Google it. Truck driving job, Spain, just to see if anything comes up. Okay, so let's see if anybody actually puts the rates. Just clicking on stuff on Google, but it may be worth you doing a Google search anyway, because if you're interested in jobs, I would say apply now. Just contact some of these companies and ask them specifically what you need if you're coming from another country within Europe, and you'll get all the information directly from them. But I've just gone to Indeed, which got a few jobs, but they haven't put the salaries on this. Okay. Yeah, I can't see the salary rates. So yeah, you'd have to contact them, but I would just go to indeed.com and just put a search for truck driver Spain and see if anything comes up. It's the easiest way of doing it. Is the unemployment still big in your area? We're in La Mata, which is just near Torrevieja and sits south of Alicante. In our area, it's one of the worst areas in Spain for unemployment. But my work is mainly online anyway, or in the UK. The reason being, I have some specific skills that are in demand in the UK. So I'd be crazy to get a local job, in the sense that I can earn I could earn over €6,000 a month. Let's put it that way. So there's no the local rates in here. I seem to find that the most people are getting paid is around €1,600 a month on average. There's a lot of people paid less than that. I know people that work in some of the retail stores that are paid €700 a month with a 12-hour day, which I believe is illegal, but at the same time, they're not processing any paperwork with it either. So I'm not getting into who or where, because obviously if it's illegal, I don't want to know. It's none of my business. But unemployment is still a big problem in this area. And I will say that there will be areas, it's all dependent on your skills as well, because the construction industry took a massive hit. And that's where I think about 1.5 million people are still unemployed from the construction industry. So on that industry alone, there's a lot of unemployment. If you're an accountant or something else, a lot of these people just set their own places. It's the same here. I'm tempted to concentrate on processing paperwork for people and stuff, because there's a lot of work for doing the gesture type stuff. Not gesture with a J, a gesture with a G. So there is a lot of work around, because there's a large population of people that don't speak Spanish, a large population that struggle with paperwork in Spain. There's a lot of people that are quite happy just to say, Matt, I need to get my residency. Matt, I need to get my driving license, car insurance, whatever it is. Just deal with it for me. There's a lot of people that do that. It's just because it's just such a headache sometimes. Thirsty, can you say you were born under a lucky star, or is it something different? I'm 27, but want to live like you in Spain also. It seems crazy dreams, but can't stop thinking about it. Anyways, I'll tell you now, I've been overseas for 10 years now. And originally, it all started with something very, very funny. A friend of mine was doing online dating, and I was around his house on a Saturday morning, and he was complaining that he was looking for, he paid some sort of subscription, and he was complaining that nobody had looked at his profile. He hadn't had anybody contact him in a month. So sitting having a beer in a chat, I was like, okay, well, let me have a look at your profile, you know, like said jokingly. So he let me on his computer, and I went through and rewrote it. The first thing is his username was good size. I'm not saying that that's a good starting point for a name when looking for love online, but I rewrote his profile basically because some people struggle to write about themselves. There's photos of people appearing around the screen, and there was one there that just caught my eye. I clicked on the picture. I sent an email through the system saying, I'm not a member of this website, but I just seen your picture and I just want, I thought you had a lovely smile. I just want to get in touch. Here's my email. I know this isn't right, but we'll see what happens. And then I think it was about a week later, the person contacted me and we talked, and then we talked every day for the next 9 months. Then eventually, because I kept saying, well, I'll come out and see you, because she was out in the Philippines. I'll come out for a visit, and we were just friends. There was no, relationship sort of. We sort of hit it off. We were interested on the different lives that we live. And after 9 months, I eventually set the goal to say, right, I'm going to go for a 2-week holiday and go and meet this lovely woman. Because up until then, I kept changing contracts. I finished a contract, and then Amelia's question, what football team do I support? April supports Barcelona. Myself, I'm not really a football fan, but most of my family support Glasgow Rangers. But anyway, back onto the story. So the contracts I kept pushing contracts to finish them early so I could get this 2 weeks off. And then the next contract, they would start early. So I wasn't getting this gap. So I said, right, you know what, I'm going to go and visit her. And that was it. So we hit it off as soon as we met each other at the airport. Long story short, I went back to the UK, handed my notice in, moved to the Philippines 6 weeks later, and basically been overseas for the last decade nearly. December this year is a decade. Although I hop in and out the UK from time to time for some contract work, etc. I spent time in the Philippines, a bit of time in the Middle East, and obviously hop back and forth to the UK, and now living in Spain. We're happily married, so I would say you have to take a leap of faith sometimes. A lot of people will talk themselves out of doing something. The way I look at these things is, what's the worst that can happen? If you already own your property in the UK, I would say don't sell it. I would say rent it out. I would say go to Spain or wherever, try 3-6 months. If you make it, you make it. If you don't, at least you tried. That's the important bit. At least you tried. Because a lot of people will talk themselves out of doing it. What if this happens? What if I get sick? What if this? I'll tell you what, when I went to the Philippines, I kept a bank balance of £6,000 as an emergency fund that had built up over a period of time. Because it was a bit of a joke with me and my wife, because I was actually in the process of looking at buying a Porsche, and that was my deposit for my car. But in the end, I used it for my wedding instead. Because I went in November, but we got married in December. So, yeah, complain. Really happily married, and it's been a life-changing experience, but I'm way happier for it. Jamie Fernandez, what would you say about people that make videos on comments saying something like, don't go to Spain, or you won't find a job and run out of money and won't be able to get out? The first thing with that is, I would say a lot of these people have had negative experiences that they created themselves. The first thing you always need is an emergency fund. You need your get out. Like me, currently I've got X amount of money in the bank, and I took a hard hit this month already because my father-in-law in the Philippines died. I had the medical expenses, I had the funeral expenses, and I paid it all in cash because I save money every month. So I took quite a hard hit for the start of the year. But at the same time, I've still got money in the bank, and when it hits a certain level, I'll tell you now, I'll hop on the plane and go and do some contract work, because I don't let it get me in a situation that I can't recover from. And that's what these guys don't do. What they often do is they'll go, oh, well, if I just spend my airfare so I can be here one more week or whatever. Spend your airfare on just trying to exist in some. Get your airfare back to where you come from. Go back, earn some more money. And if you're resilient enough, you will come back, because you should have learned what went wrong from your last experience. And this is where they don't work, because what happens is they blame everybody else. They don't turn around and say, hey, you know what? I don't speak Spanish. It's my own fault. Or I don't have any skills I can use. Or I didn't knock every business door trying to find any work, even if it's pot washing. At the end of the day, they have chosen to give up. And then instead of just saying, you know what, like I said, at least and go, I tried, they sit there whining about it. You need to turn around and go, yeah, well, guess what? The UK is not a comfortable market these days. But the thing with Spain, it's got sunshine. Reasonable cost of living. It's got an environment that's friendly. I can walk around in here at 2 o'clock in the morning with no issues. You know, I wouldn't do that in Worcester these days. There's a huge drug problem in Worcester that nobody seems to even acknowledge exists. That's why my kids are here in Spain and not the UK. I want a safe environment for my kids. Thursday, so you don't believe in destiny? Oh, well, maybe with my wife, because I had no intention of going to the Philippines. I wasn't looking for a partner at the time. I was quite simply just editing somebody's profile and was quite happy being single at the time. I had a good life, you know. At the end of the day, I had a good, you know, steady income, good income, and it was just one of those things. And you know, meeting my wife, it opened up the world to me in different ways. You know, I come from a work-based environment where I was more focused on financial and status, and now I'm more focused on family life and just enjoying being around the people that matter. That's what's changed. Jamie Fernandez, I would say, Thirsty, don't make the mistake most people make. If you really plan to move to Spain later, start learning Spanish now. I agree 100% on that. I will say Duolingo is a good place to start, but you need to use other stuff. Duolingo is the sort of thing you use when you sat on the plane, sat on the bus, sat on the train, sat with nothing else to do, just to keep reinforcing the words. But Thursday, I already do it. I've been learning Spanish little by little every day for about a month already. Yeah, it takes time. It really does. And it's once you get into the conversation stuff as well, it gets a little bit harder. Well, I find it a lot harder, but you know, I do find it difficult, especially when you're trying to, you know, some words and then it's got completely different meanings depending on how it's used in a sentence. Those things confuse me. Because I'm like, what? How did it go from this to this? I don't know what changed. But you get that in other languages, like Japanese, you know, Japanese, Chinese, to do with tones and stuff. It's like, I didn't hear something change, but you said it completely different. Yeah, so I do think, yeah, Spanish language, if you're serious about coming to Spain, Spanish language is the first thing you need to focus on. Getting work is on there, but it's much easier if you speak Spanish. Way easier, way easier. The other thing on that is once you have found a job and got you know, maybe you got good Spanish language, the next thing is getting used to the paperwork here. The paperwork is a nightmare. The main thing is not to get frustrated with it. It's just to realize it's mañana. It'll happen when it happens. It's a bit like when I turned up for an appointment at the foreigner's office for my residency before. And I said, I've come up for the appointment. And like, oh, it's not in the book. It's like, but we phoned through like 6 weeks ago about, oh, it's not here. I said, but I'm going to the UK tomorrow. Yeah, don't worry about it. Just do it when you come back. And that was the response from the foreigner's office. You know, everyone's like, this has got to be done. Da, da, da. And it's like, nothing's in a rush with anything. You may get to some appointment and somebody complaining that you haven't had your paperwork done on time, but you're sort of sitting there going, are you aware of everybody else before you? Everybody else I've dealt with? They slow it all down. So main thing is to be polite, don't get frustrated, and everywhere I go, the English language isn't really prevalent. So you need to have some Spanish language ability. And one of the things, this is a tip, do a cover letter explaining why you are there in Spanish, and then put on the back of it, you know, right at the bottom, please write it on the back. You know, and obviously this is in Spanish. So when they say you need this document, this, they can write it on the back and they don't have to talk to you in English, because they get frustrated sometimes. Because I find a lot of people don't like speaking English, but B, I do find that a lot of people don't speak English. So doing that alone, I'm in some headaches. Thursday, nothing's impossible. I know 3 languages already: Lithuanian, Russian, and English. Well, you'll probably find your Russian would do quite well in my area. There's a lot of Russians here, as well as Ukrainians. Thursday, but I think I've been thinking about doing some business now rather than learning Spanish. Well, the thing is, if you're doing business, the way I look at it is I try to concentrate on online businesses. The stuff I do in the UK, I'm trying to get them to give me it remote. I did the 6 months of last year remotely, which meant I earned the same money as I do in the UK, but I earned it in Spain. But also, I'm getting dribs and drabs. Like yesterday, last Wednesday, I was doing some spreadsheets for a client in the UK. I think this week there may be some more come through, because with the work I do in the UK, it only takes 5 days a month to pay all my bills. Yeah, so yeah, business is a good idea, but also be aware that I think the online business market is a good one. I do think that there's opportunities in Spain, but if you open a business here, you're still going to need to speak Spanish, because you can't just rely on the expat community. Because even doing expat services, you're the bridge between the expats and the Spanish bureaucracy. So you're still speaking both languages. So yeah, all depends on what you're looking to do and where, you know. If you're looking at doing it online, it's not too bad. But if it's going to be in Spain, you're still going to need your permits. You're still going to need suppliers, etc., etc. The next thing I suppose would be renting, finding a place to rent. In Spain, there's lots of websites around, and if you get a private rental, you may be saving yourself like 50 euros a month on what the agent would be charging, which could mean that it's coming off your rent. You know, it could save you 50 euros in your pocket. The one I'm in was originally set up where I was told that there was an agent was dealing with it. He did all the contracts, and then like after all the flooding and stuff, he says, "No, I just did an introductory fee." It's like, well, why didn't you tell me that months ago? But anyway, long story short, but there is cheaper rentals around in specific areas. We find La Mata, where we are, which is just north of Torrevieja, the rents are a little bit higher than they are in Torrevieja. Not 100% why, but I think where we are is more popular with the tourists than Torrevieja itself. So I mean, I know when it's tourist season here, I can't park anywhere near the house. I have to take the bike because we're that far away. I have to cycle back. Well, I say cycle, it's an electric bike. I'm cheating. But the rental on that's a bit cheaper. Also, if you go a bit further inland, it gets cheaper, or you get the same price, but you get more land with it. There's all sorts of stuff around. That's why it's worth researching exactly where you want to live, but take into consideration, does it have school runs? Where's the nearest school? Where's the nearest supermarket, hospital, clinic? All the usual stuff related to living somewhere, because some of the places are a bit far out. And then he's saving you would have got on rent, you'll end up spending on fuel and taxi fares or whatever. Yeah, Jamie Fernandez. There seems to be expats that don't speak Spanish working on sales agents or whatever for houses for other expats. Yes, they do. The reason being, for real estate, the biggest market is not in Spain, in these coastal areas. Most of the people buying are not Spanish. They're mainly all over Europe. There's a lot of Russians buy, a lot of French, Belgian, Dutch, all over. And they even open offices in those countries. So I would agree with you. There's a lot of people who don't speak Spanish, but the reason they don't is they don't have to, in the sense that within that real estate agency, there will be people that say there's 4 agents. They're probably, between the 4, they probably speak 10 languages. So that's why it's not such an issue. But trying to get one of those jobs, you may get a job as an agent, but salary on it, a lot of them are on commission. But at the same time, I do think there's opportunities to even open your own agency. But the most business you will get is not going to be here in Spain. It's going to be from elsewhere. It's going to be getting clients in the UK that fly to have a look at apartments here. There'll be clients in India that are coming to buy here. If you can get them, you're going to win. Because even if you're the guy that is just brokering the deal in the sense that your clients, you'll get a cut of the sales. So you can do that. But like I said, I mean, that's where the market is. It's not actually in Spain for most of those. The deals are done outside to bring them here. And once they're here, the guys here are just closing the deals. But the actual getting hold of them doesn't really go on too much in Spain. It goes on in their home countries, doing a lot of stuff online, doing lead generation. That's the stuff to look at. Hi, Lawrence. How will the Brexit affect the market? I would say the market's already feeling it, because there's uncertainty. I think it's slowing down a little bit. There's an apartment we're looking at the moment that's dropped by 10,000 euros in a year. Now, whether that's the Brexit or the fact that people are still holding on to the dream that they're going to recover the money they spent when they bought it in the boom, I don't know. But the thing is, I do feel that it will have a slowing effect for the next couple of years. But you also have a lot of other countries that buy property in Spain. There's a lot of places like Russia. There's a lot of people coming over. I assume they're edging their bets that if there's any problems in Russia, they can disappear to Spain, or it's offshore money, whatever they're doing. There's a lot of people investing still in this area. There's a lot of Scandinavians invest here, and people from, you get people come down from Norway and stuff because they get, they come here for the sun and whatever. So there's still a market here. But what I find is the new builds are selling okay, but the older stuff, a lot of it's still sitting there. There's not as much interest in the older builds, which means the prices are coming down slowly. I mean, this is the thing, people keep pushing. There's been more sales this year, but don't really talk about the fact that how many of them have had to reduce the price to close the deals. Because at the end of the day, I know myself, when I go to bid on an apartment here, it will be below their asking price. It will not be, I love it so much, I'll pay a little bit extra. It will be, I know you're desperate to sell, because nearly everybody is. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the properties in La Mata are owned by the Spanish as well. I want to say that. It seems a lot of people come from Madrid, Barcelona, and Bilbao. I haven't been to Bilbao, but it seems a lot of people are from there. So it must have been very popular at one time, in the sense that most of the owners seem to be in their 70s and above. So there must have been some sort of thing that connected everybody to come and buy in La Mata, because they seem to own a lot of the properties. From the property market, it's not affecting it too much at the minute, but I think it will create some stalling effect where people are concerned about what's going to go on. One of the things I will say, in my opinion, I don't think the Brexit will mess around with pensions. I don't think it will mess around with the healthcare system in Spain. It's not beneficial to the UK, and it's not beneficial to Spain. So I think with that, not a lot will change. I also think if they messed around with the pension system, they would get expats from everywhere going back to the UK. And that's one thing the UK does not need, is to generate a housing crisis, because a lot of people sold up years ago. They can't go back to the UK because obviously suddenly having X amount of hundreds of thousands of people suddenly turn up at your doorstep saying, "How's me? You brought me back and I've had to sell everything." It's your problem. The UK isn't built for accommodating for that. So I don't think they're going to try and localize pensions to just the UK. I think they'll leave that alone. I think they'll keep the arrangements with healthcare open. They may alter it slightly, but I can't see it changing too much because let's face it, it benefits the UK. Having people go out of the UK for retirement means they're not using the NHS up. And I would say the weather here, people are probably a bit healthier because, you know, as you get older, you feel the cold. You feel it in your bones, you get your arthritis and everything else. And in Spain, although we've had a cold few months, it's been nowhere near what my parents and relatives are facing in the UK. So, yeah, I would say nobody wants the retirees back. Everybody's happy to leave them where they are. And let's be honest, they've paid their way already. This is why I don't get this argument when people go, oh, well, it's our money, you know, in the UK. No, it's not. The pensions were paid for years ago. Now, because the current government, the last governments have spent it, that's not my fault. It's not the people that I hear's fault. It's down to the government. So when the media is pushing there's a pension crisis as well, which somebody posted the other day. There's always been a pension crisis. It hasn't changed. Yeah, Jamie Fernandez. That's of course on the coast of Spain. This is related to the weather. Some places have terrible weather. I agree, but from a Brexit point of view, it's predominantly British or on the coast. So yeah, I would say I do agree. There's certain areas that I wouldn't want to be there in the winter, especially if you get in the mountainous areas. It's not going to be nice. Yeah, no fan of that myself. I agree with you totally. Well, I'm going to wrap this one up for today because it's over 1 hour long. But I just want to do a trial run just to see if anybody was actually listening to it. And also if anybody wanted to get on and have a chat. And it's been great having everybody come along and have some engagement here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody taking the time. But also, I think we'll have to have a little bit of a, what do you call it, a poll on the best time to actually have these. If we're going to have these on a regular basis, we could poll it and say, right, we'll have it on a Wednesday or whatever, to get an idea when it suits everybody. Because in all honesty, I like doing these, and I do them on my Philippines channel as well, because I still have a lot of people follow my Philippine stuff. But the thing is, I think there's a lot of stuff out there, and you can also be a guest on this channel. We can actually dial in the same way I'm talking. I can dial you on your phone, I can dial you on your computer, and you can get in on the chat as well. So have a think, and please leave comments, and please like the show. If you enjoyed it, please like it. It helps boost the show up on the rankings, etc. But also, I'm doing this for the to help everybody else as well as myself. I like doing chats, but also I like sharing information and trying to get more information out there for everybody to see, so people can move to Spain, but also people here can also enjoy Spain more. I love the country. Yeah, Jamie Fernandez, have fun and maybe check the video qualities you are streaming. It may affect things. Yeah, well, it's not too bad if it's voice to voice, because what happens is it's meeting on a server somewhere. It's not actually meeting on my computer. So they're actually talking to the server and I'm talking to the server. So it's not too bad. Mine will stay consistent. Theirs will be consistent. But yeah, we'll check theirs to check the broadcast before it goes live. Thirsty, nice talking to you too. Thanks for coming on. Hope all goes well with the business, and keep on with the Spanish. Take care. Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll have a test run. We can also do a test run in the background before it goes live. So thanks for everybody who's joined us. And like I said, please like it if you enjoyed the show, and take care. Have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.